Hello friends, welcome to MOM, the Hindu News Analysis program presented by DEEKSHA SPACE. Today we are going to discuss December 15th, 2020, the Hindu newspaper. Today's first article, concern over India still importing tomato paste and pulp. Today this article we are discussing in the context of National Academy of Agricultural Sciences, which held a strategy session based on the theme Need for Breeding Tomato Situation for Processing in India. So this session was based or decided on the perspective that India, which has made strides in horticultural research, is still today importing tomato paste and pulp for the processing sector. Today, the import of tomatoes, which holds around 23,700 tons 2019 and 20, was valued around 20.64 million tons, and the major component in this tomato paste or pulp is tomato, which stands at around 21,834 tons, which values around $19 million. And if this import could be reversed and India becomes a major exporter of food processed tomato products, then we can capture the market and it can be a value addition to our GDP. Today, the imports which we are getting with respect to tomato are majorly from China, which holds around 72%, US 17%, Spain 6%, Italy 3%, and Chile. UK, Switzerland, Nigeria, Malaysia, and Bhutan are also contributing in small amounts. So, in this sector, there is huge potential for India to look after. However, India has to take care of high yielding variety of tomato seeds which are necessary in order to make the make the tomato suitable for food processing. Today, the tomatoes which are grown in India are low yielding and high input requiring crop. So low yield means if a crop which is to be used for this tomato food processing industry has to be at least 1 ton or 10 tons of tomatoes per acre has to be grown. Today, what we are growing is 25% of this. I mean around 2 tons or 2.5 ton per acre is what we are getting. So we have to increase fourfold. And the input cost what we are putting for the growth of tomato is also very high. At this cost, we cannot promote a food processing industry of tomato concerned. So we have to reduce the cost. For that, we have to increase the yield. So if the tomatoes can come down for 4 rupees per kg, then it is viable economically for food processing industry. So these are the aspects which need to be taken care in order to capture the tomato food processing industry, which can be a greatest stride for India's horticultural research and which can add an employment to the rural population and rural youth also. So the economic prospects or opportunities which are available in tomato industry can be understood, and this section what we have discussed now will be helpful for us with respect to GS paper 3 food processing industry in India. So this question or this context can be used in essay with respect to employment or with respect to economic development, and a general studies question can also come up with respect to the same. Next article, India Britain to discuss upgrade of ties. The article that we are discussing today is in the context of British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab is going to meet External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar on Tuesday. The analysis of this article will help us with respect to General Studies Paper 2 International Relations. In this article, we are going to discuss in what way the discussion or meeting is going to be beneficial or is going to upgrade the ties between India and Britain. In this context, we need to understand that India has invited British Prime Minister Boris Johnson to the Republic Day parade. The confirmation is still to be waited, but it is expected that he will come. So in this meeting, which is going on between Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab and External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, it is expected that the relationship will be upgraded to comprehensive strategic partnership. From 2004, India and Britain are maintaining strategic partnership, and in various fields they have conducted high-level exchanges, and the cooperation is growing in various areas. But the development to comprehensive strategic partnership agreement will help India and Britain to move forward with respect to strategic relationship, Indo-Pacific policy trade, cooperation on renewable energies also. The partnership will help also strengthening trade, defense, climate, migration, mobility, education, health sector in post-COVID, post-Brexit context. In between India and Britain, if you see, the defense agreements are also very vital. A mutual defense logistics support agreement was in the advanced stage of negotiation, and it is expected that in this meeting it will also be discussed. government to government mechanism for defense deals, defense training memorandum of understanding is also under work between India and Britain. At this context, we need to understand a defense technology and industrial capability cooperation agreement is also signed as an MOU in April 2019, and it is expected that it will go to the next level. India and Britain have agreed to develop a government to government agreement on jet engine technology development. These are the very important issues in order to understand in this article. And as we all know, United Nations Climate Change Conference COP26 is going to be held in Glasgow, November 2021. Both sides are keen on expanding their partnership in order to fight against global warming and build renewable energy technologies. Next article is Stealth Frigate Himagiri is ready. The context of this article can be understood better if we know Project 17A. Project 17A is a Nilgiri based stealth frigate project under which 7 ships are to be designed for Navy. These 7 ships are to be divided again. 4 ships will be built in Garden Reach Shipbuilders and Engineers, Kolkata, which is a defense public sector undertaking, and another 3 will be built in Goa shipyard. And out of the 4 which are to be built in GRSE Kolkata, this is the first ship with stealth technology called Himagiri, which has been launched. Under P17A, these ships are built with a displacement capacity of around 6,670 tons, which will be the most advanced state-of-art guided missile frigate. If you all understand what is the stealth technology is hard to detect by one or more radars, visual, sonar and infrared methods. So it is best in art of having an invisibility. So this project is going to give a state-of-art development to Navy of India. In this context, we have to understand this Italian company called Fincantieri is also providing and help with respect to know-how technology for upgradation and capacity enhancement of this project. So this is very basic information which we need to remember. There can be a direct question with respect to this. Next article, more takers for private healthcare under Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. So in order to understand this article, we need to have a prior background understanding about Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. If you know, Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, which was launched with 2 minute details to be covered. One is Ayushman Bharat, another one is National Health Protection Scheme. So under Ayushman Bharat, it was decided that government will provide 5 lakh health sub-centers to be converted into health and wellness centers. And under the National Health Protection Scheme, 5 lakh per family will be given as a health cover per annum to 50 crore beneficiaries. Under this, the scheme was made portable across the country for secondary and tertiary care hospitalization, and the beneficiaries will be covered under the scheme will be allowed to take cashless benefits from any public or private empaneled hospitals across the country. So here, National Health Agency has conducted a survey with respect to Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, and it has found that maximum patients have been taken this benefit in private healthcare hospitals. And the facts or points with respect to the National Healthcare Agency's survey will be helpful for us with respect to General Studies Paper 2 issues related to health, and this can be a brief background with respect to present status of Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana scheme. So under this scheme, we got to know that private hospitals have helped the government in order to extend the program Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana to different geographical regions, under which we have seen that patients have taken knee replacement, cataract, hemodialysis, cardiovascular surgeries, which have overwhelmingly helped the patients, and private hospitals have played a very important role. Under this, we have also found that medical audits shown that private hospitals are more likely to indulge in fraud and abuse than public hospitals, and they are more likely to discharge patients early in order to cut the cost after or post surgery. So we need to take care that the government has to make an attempt to make sure the accountability and efficiency of these hospitals with respect to healthcare is preeminent, and it need to be developed, and it is a challenge with respect to implementation of this scheme. So this challenge has to be addressed over a period of time. And another important fact here need to be understood is 72% of private empaneled hospitals are just in 7 states. Those are Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Punjab and Karnataka. Less than 25% of the hospitals or private hospitals are empaneled in northeastern and hilly states, and 80% in Maharashtra. There is a stark contrast with respect to implementation or involvement of private hospitals in different regions. So these regions which actually or which are in more need of healthcare facilities are staying or lagging behind is the point of concern which need to be addressed. And another important fact to be understood here is private hospitals have fewer beds than public hospitals and are more likely to be empaneled for surgical packages and super specialties. So government has to take care of infrastructure development with respect to clinical support services in government hospitals also is the point of intention here it is being presented. With respect to other things, there are no important issues. However, these 3-4 points are very important with respect to implementation of Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana scheme, which has been conducted by survey of National Health Agency. Next article, firing a warning shot across big techs. So if you all remember from the last 1 week, we have been discussing with respect to lawsuits filed against Facebook. So in this article, we are going to discuss in detail about anti-competitive practices which are being taken over by big tech companies like Apple, Amazon, Facebook and Google. So here we need to understand that these big tech companies have developed their monopoly and COVID-19 or novel coronavirus pandemic has further enhanced their monopoly power. The regulators have always attempted to take over these anti-competitive practices, but they could not find any success. If you see, US Department of Justice in 1998 has took over an initiative against Microsoft, but it could not find any success. As of now, you can see a rash of lawsuits and regulatory moves are taken in US and Europe against Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Google, but in days we need to see how this is going to take a turn. But it is one thing for sure that it is going to take over unregulated environment and it is going to stop the anti-competitive practices. October 2020, if you see, the US Department of Justice brought a lawsuit against Google. If you remember, Google is the famous search engine with respect, which is again making an agreement with respect to OS developers like Android and getting over in all the phones. When a user uses it, the Google is able to get over the data and that can be used against the competitors to reinforce its dominance and get revenue from its advertising. And another context, if you remember, US Federal Trade Commission and 48 states, District of Columbia and Guam has sued Facebook against social networking, crushing smaller competitors. If you all remember, in 2012, Facebook acquired Instagram and after 2 years from 2012, it acquired WhatsApp also. Internal communication source that they were worried about and photos and video sharing app which could be hindrance to the development of Facebook, and yes, it has to be purchased. And again they felt again an internal communication report shows that they were worried about WhatsApp also. But the question here asked is, are these companies WhatsApp and Instagram which sold their companies or brands, do they really sell it off only because of money? If you look at the Instagram was sold for around $1 billion and WhatsApp was around for $19 billion. Yes, that might be a big money which Facebook is able to afford, but there are other questions or other reports which shows that these company owners were feared of, again, Facebook and Google being a very giant companies. Whenever a business is coming up, they need to have a new customer base, and these companies having a large base will not be competitive or will not be strong enough to compete with respect to these companies. And when it is asked, there is no other option we can avoid for as long as time, but yes, we cannot win was the fear which was among these owners, and yes, they had to give up their companies. If you look at Amazon and Apple also follow the anti-competitive practices. Amazon, which has its own app and will never allow other app developers to come up with the innovation and affordability, is also point of contention here. Amazon, it is also planning the same thing. So all these companies, if you remember, antitrust cases against Google is also having its own regulatory regime getting in relation with Android. It is trying its own anti-competitive practices. These all companies which are actually violating the privacy protection protocols, they are taking over data by which is against the biggest source of revenue and profit today. They are using this data in order to market and targeted advertising, influencing, manipulating political outcomes, targeting individuals based on particular criteria, enabling services by both governments and private agencies. So by forcing, again, okay, what all these lawsuits are going to do is again point of issue, which again is with all in the mind. So these lawsuits, like in 1980s, AT&T, which was a giant telecom company, had to divest. So these Facebook will also be forced to divest both WhatsApp and Instagram is what is being predicted. In India's angle, if you see, WhatsApp, which is around 400 million subscriber base, around 2 billion are from India only. Amazon has around 1/3 share of market in online retail in India, which is neck to neck with Flipkart. Facebook has around largest single market in India, 270 million accounts. Google, which is largest dominant of search engine space in India, and most of the smartphone in India are Android based. And if you see, Facebook and Google are collaborating with India's largest telecom company, Reliance Jio, to create a single gateway for Indians, which will provide information, news, media, and entertainment to daily purchase of groceries and sundry and other services. The report suggests that Facebook has unwilling to remove incendiary and violent content of fear of backlash. If you see all this, these companies are also playing a major role in Indian market and Indian people mind. So these need to be regulated is the point of intention what author is trying to say here. If you all remember, Supreme Court has said or given a judgment that right to privacy is a fundamental right. Even today, the government could not come up with a bill or law which will give a strong right to privacy. That even though there is a bill, it is weak and it is not having adequate safeguards. So it is a time for Indians to wake up and realize that the antitrust regulation and public control over digital companies, including homegrown ones, have to be critical for them. So this is the understanding what we have to develop here. Next article, India needs to rethink its nutrient agenda. In this article, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, which has released National Family Health Survey 5 Phase 1 results or report, shows about 22 states and union territories. However, we need to remember here that 7 states, Tamil Nadu, Punjab, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand, Odisha and Madhya Pradesh are not included into this survey. However, we will get a clear picture when Phase 2 survey reports are also out. And going through the analysis of these 22 states and union territories, the report has been putting up a nutrition outcomes which are really disheartening or troubling. In this article, we are going to discuss few of the aspects where National Family Health Survey has discussed. And as we all know, National Health Family Survey discusses or it presents data related to health, nutrition and other economic surveys indicators, and it shows positive trends and negative trends both. So first let us look at the positive trends where we will understand where India has been performing well. If you see, malnutrition or access to sanitization, clean cooking fuels, women's status with respect to violence, greater access to women of bank accounts are the positive aspects which National Family Health Survey 5 is speaking about. If you look at the negative aspects in health status, India needs to actually look down. Where we see out of 16 states, out of 22, only 16 states have been shown or showing the prevalence or increase in malnutrition. Kerala and Karnataka are the only 2 big states, and 6 states and UTs which are there in the form of declination with respect to malnutrition. Other are actually on the rise. With respect to underweight, out of 22, 16 states have shown an increase. With respect to anemia, children and adult women, out of all the states, around 4 states are only which have been declining with respect to anemia problems. Those are Lakshadweep, Andaman Nicobar Islands, Dadar and Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu and Meghalaya. The problem with respect to adult malnutrition is also point of concern which has been put up here. Body mass index is less than 18.5 kilograms per meter cube. If you see, body mass index is calculated in order to understand the obesity problems, so which presents a point of contrast in inadequacy of diets in India with respect to quality and quantity is point of concern here. Childhood stunting, if you understand, childhood stunting is taken as an indicator by World Health Organization in order to understand the inequalities in human development. So in India, out of 22 states what we have surveyed, 13 states have shown that we are chronic undernutrition and considered a sensitive indicator of overall well-being. With respect to Poshan Abhiyan, if you remember, it was launched as a flagship program by Prime Minister in 2017 in order to achieve 2% percentage reduction in childhood stunting per year. But if you look at the statistics, Sikkim, Bihar and other 4 states, they show at least 2005 or 2005 and 6 National Family Health Survey 3 to 2015 and 16, if you see, there is only 10% increase or reduction, which is around achievement of 1 percentage point per year. However, it is low, but it is in a positive side, which can be a appreciable point of thing to understand here. So here the point is, from last 3 decades, India has seen varying growth records with respect to economy, and there has been increasing inequality, greater informalization of labor force, reducing employment elasticities of growth. So social protection programs are also taken care by government with respect to Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Program, public distribution system, integrated child development and school meals have been contributed to the reduction of absolute poverty. But there are few concerns with respect to this also. These programs are weakening mechanisms through underfunding and general neglect. If you see December 2019, the Minister of Women and Child Development presented a data which showed that only 32.5% of funds which were allocated for Poshan Abhiyan were used in 2017 and 18. Other were unutilized. This shows clearly that it is being neglected completely about with respect to integrated child development or school meals. The other point of contention here, fact which needs to be understood here is slowdown in economic growth, stagnation in rural wages, high level of unemployment is going to increase this malnutrition and problems of child stunting. So here the government, before understanding this context, we can take care of two surveys to understand here. Hunger Watch, which is an NGO which works on food insecurity and decline in food consumption, is working towards understanding that post-COVID world is going to be a greater challenge for with respect to these aspects. Food campaign has also shown that from 2015 till today, 100 starvation deaths have been verified and fact-finding reports are presented. So National Family Health Survey, which works on these aspects, have to take care of all these things. In this article, there are few approaches or way forwards which are also being discussed here, where we need to understand with respect to piecemeal approach, what is being given here is not going to address the issue. There need to be a supplementary nutrition of eggs and fruits which helps in growth monitoring or behavioral change, communication through ICDS. School meals can be strengthened, and need is the more resource where government has to think of. So universal maternity entitlement, child care services made to be exclusive breastfeeding, and appropriate infant and young children feeding program has to be done of. Agriculture and nutrition, apart from this, if you want to improve with respect to malnutrition, the major determinants are household food security, access to basic health services, and equitable gender. With respect to employment center growth strategy, if India has to win out, then the provisions with respect to basic services of education, health, food and social security are imperative. So National Family Health Survey is a wake-up call for the serious thinking of issues related to nutrition and accord these issues priority is what is point of information what author is trying to give here. Next article, green over brown. Here India's climate goals are on track, but further investment must be sustainable. In this article, we are discussing that India participated in the virtual climate summit which was held on Saturday and marked that India has been on the right track with respect to pledge whatever it has given with respect to emission reductions, and it is going to exceed the targets what it has given. And the virtual climate action summit, as we all remember in the previous news analysis programs, we have seen that it was to mark the 5 years of Paris Climate Agreement. In this summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that India, which decided that 33 to 35% of emission reduction targets with respect to GDP by 2030 will be achieved, and India in 2020 has achieved 21% of emission reduction targets. And the two pillars for this target to achieve by 2030 are renewable energy and high forest cover regions. If we look at the emission gap report 2020, which is released by United Nations Environment Program, please remember that emission gap report is released by United Nations Environment Program. It says that G20 members who are on track to achieve their unconditional commitment under Paris Pact are based on pre-COVID-19 projections. However, G20 bloc is the one which is responsible for 78% of global emission targets. This G20 bloc, apart from some countries or a European Union, have announced a higher ambition at the summit. However, globally around $12 trillion is being what is given as fiscal stimulus in order to come over the post-COVID-19 situation. Here one has to understand that India will face a challenge with respect to this after pandemic, with respect to rehabilitation, spending away traditional brown sector policies aligned with fossil fuels used to green territory. So changeover from brown economy to green economy is going to be a challenging for India's goal to be achieved is what is point of concern here. And at this point of time, India has shown that with respect to carbon sink, around 2.5 billion to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide by 2030 is what the target India has thought of, and it will provide a varying samples of benefits with respect to protecting diversity, influencing climate system, providing resources of communities. However, the government has to work on cohesive policy on verifiable afforestation, and carbon sink approach may yield poor dividends with question hanging over spending. As India said, 100 gigawatts of solar power capacity within overall renewables goals from 36 now. If we have to reach out to the target, then we have to at least promote rooftop solar installations among the public. If the awareness and campaign can be worked out, only then the 100 gigawatts targets of whatever India has thought of can be achieved, is what is point of contention. Transport related emissions are major component of air pollution in India. After unlock, we have seen people started preferring their personal vehicles. So India has to little bit worry about this thing and should have worked on cycling and pedestrianization. So it is point of important thing to be understood here. So in 2021, where UN climate change conference, which is going to be held in Glasgow in 2021, India needs to focus on future emissions and plan green investments that could qualify for global climate funding. This is all about today's Hindu newspaper, friends. So I hope all of you are doing well. Take care of your health, study well, have a nice food. Sorry for today being late. Hindu newspaper analysis. Tomorrow I will make sure this is presented to you before well in time. Thank you. Have a nice day. Jai Hind.